G'day, I'm Tim Thompson. There's something amazingly rewarding about growing and making your own wine. In fact, I haven't come across yet a more satisfying thing that you can do with your land. Today, I'm going to go through why acid and sugar is so important to get right before you pick your grapes to get good wine. Then I'm going to show you how to test for acid and sugar. And then I'm going to show you how to sample a vineyard to make sure that you get an accurate sample and you don't have bias. So when you pick your grapes, you get exactly what you want. So the first thing I want to illustrate to you is why acid and sugar matters in wine. So as they say in the classics, here's one I prepared earlier. This is a wine from a couple of years ago. I'm going to use this to illustrate the importance first of acid. Now that we've got that enjoyable job out of the way, let's put an equal amount of this wine into each and every of these glasses. So as you can see, I've got 3 glasses, all with a small amount of wine in them, all lined up in a row. Now here comes our first bit of chemistry. I'm going to test the pH of the wine using a simple pH meter. You can buy these for $70 or $80 in a shop. Make sure you calibrate them first. Instructions and a little calibration kit come with the good ones. Let's just put that in the middle there and let's just give it a moment just to stabilise and figure out what the starting pH is. So now that the wine's stabilised out, you can see that it's reading at around about 3.6. That's a pretty good acid range for red wine. It keeps the colour and flavour of the juice intact, and I'll explain that to you in a minute. Now, let's blow out its 2 friends, make one really acidic and make one really basic, and see what happens to the wine quality. So now, to the wine on the left, I'm going to add tartaric acid. It should be pretty obvious what this is going to do. It's going to lower the pH of the wine and make it super acidic. So just give it a good pinch of tartaric acid, mix that around, let it sit for a minute. We're going to take readings off of all 3. For the one on the right, I'm going to add some sodium hydroxide. Sodium hydroxide is a bit kind of like soap. It's a base, and that's going to raise the pH of that wine. So we're going to throw a bit of sodium hydroxide into there. As you can see, it's a clear liquid. Now, we've got our 3.6 in the middle. If I put the pH meter into this wine here and bring it up to the camera, you'll see that that's dropping considerably. We're sitting on around about 2.2, 2.1. So we're exaggerating this for the purposes of demonstration. So we've shot well over a pH of 4. Okay, now, with our beautiful white paper tablecloth, let's have a look at what the colour of these 3 wines now looks like. So wine number 1 on the left, or my left, your right, is the really acidic wine. This is the wine that's sitting on about a pH of 2. If we tip that over and we have a look at the meniscus, you can see that that looks like cordial now. It's got a raspberry cordial sort of look. Now, if this was smell-o-vision, I'd let you have a smell as well. But it's got a really lifted nose. It smells a bit like strawberries, overcooked strawberries. This one here, this is the wine that's sitting on 3.7. This is the one that's at the right pH, and you can see that there is a vast colour difference between the one that's way too acidic and the one that's at the right acid level. Now let's have a look at the base wine, and we turn it over and it's a muddy brown colour. So rule number 1, if you want your wine to be good in the winery, pick it when it's at the right pH. If you pick it too acid, not only will it taste like crushed ants and green grass and all those horrible flavours that you get in really badly made wine, but it will also look terrible. If you leave it on the vine too long and it becomes overcooked, as it were, all the acid will fall out of the berries and you'll end up with a wine that goes rapidly brown. So that's why acid's important. We want to pick the fruit. This is red fruit. We want to pick this Cabernet at around about a pH of 3.7. If I was dealing with white fruit like Chardonnay or something like that, I might pick it on about 3.4, 3.5. You tend to pick white wine a little bit more acidic because you take it off the skins when you ferment the wine, whereas with red wine, you leave it on the skins. Now let's talk about sugar. So wine is effectively made from fermenting sugar using yeast. If there's not enough sugar in your fruit, you won't make enough alcohol in your wine. So let's put a little bit of juice from fruit into a glass of warm water. It's around about 39 degrees Celsius, a bit like baby's bath water. And then we're going to put a little bit of winemaking yeast into that glass. Just let it sit there on the top, and we'll wait and come back in a few minutes' time and see what reaction's happening. Now let's check out the glass after about 10 minutes, and you can see all this foam in the top caused by gas. That gas is carbon dioxide, of course, and the other byproduct of fermentation, if I cover this over and don't let any oxygen in, is alcohol. The more sugar we have in that juice, the more carbon dioxide and alcohol we're going to produce. So it's really important to make sure that we have enough sugar in our fruit before we pick it to give us enough alcohol to bring out the flavour of the wine and give it its storing potential. Okay, so that's all well and good. We've gone through the science of why pH and sugar is important, but how do you test for it, and how do you make sure that your pH and sugar is right when you're actually in the vineyard before you pick the fruit? Because it's hard to glue them back on if you get it wrong. I'm going to show you how to quickly do a 200 berry sample on your small vineyard. I'm going to use the berry sample method because I'm assuming that most people watching this have a small vineyard and don't want to waste bunches and bunches of fruit. Then I'm going to show you how to use the tools and equipment necessary to make sure that you pick the right fruit every time. So the first thing we want to do is we want to sample the bunches on the vines. Now that might sound really simple, but there's great variance between bunches that are inside and not exposed to sunshine and bunches that are easily found on the outside of the vine. As a general tip, avoid the ones that are easy to see and go looking for the bunches that you're going to sample. Remove a leaf or two and have a look at the bunches that are just a little bit hidden, because the most of your bunches on the vineyard are going to be the hidden ones. It's very few that are on the outside, and yet those are the ones that you naturally see. Once you have the bunch, you want to take 5 berries off each bunch you're sampling, and I'll show you where to take those berries. We generally take 1, 2 berries off the shoulders, 1, 2 berries off the hips, and just 1 berry off the tail because there are less of them. So here we go, taking off the sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now what we're going to do is we're going to sample 4 bunches per vine, and I want to spread those samples out over the whole vine to account for any natural variance in the vine as well. So I might take 1 off here, 1 from the centre, 1 from here and 1 from the end, and there's my 4 bunches. So by the end of that, I'll have sampled 20 berries. If I then sample 10 vines spread through the block, I'll have a 200 berry sample. That will give me enough range and variance to be able to check that my sugar and acid levels are reasonably accurate across the whole block, because vines up the top of the rows might be ripening very differently to vines down the bottom. So what I'm going to do when I sample is I'm going to take a random sample. I'm not going to sample the same vine all the time. I'm just going to go to random vines in each row, but I'm also going to be representative. I'm going to take some off the bottom of the block, some off the top of the block, some off the middle. There are some spots that you would avoid though. Don't sample off your end vines. These vines aren't competing with anything out here like the rest of the vines are. If you want to be accurate, make sure that your vines have equal competition to all the rest. Very few vines are on the end. Same goes for outside rows. Now on a small vineyard like this, I do actually include the outside rows because there's only 8 rows. But in an ordinary vineyard, you would never sample the outside rows because once again, they're not competing with other vines for nutrients. They're going to have a different ripening characteristic. So to sum up how we're going to sample, we're going to take 5 berries per bunch, off 4 bunches per vine, off 10 vines, scattered about the vineyard in a random but representative manner. Random meaning there's no pattern, and representative meaning that you are taking some from the top, some from the middle, and some from the bottom of your block. So here we have our finished 200 berry sample. The first thing I need to do before I do any of the processing on this sample is kind of a fun job. I've got to squash it all up. Yum. Okay, let's start analysing. So the first piece of equipment that I'm going to use is my pH meter. I decant a bit of the juice from the sample. I make sure that my pH meter is washed and cleaned and calibrated properly, and then I put it into the sample. Now what I'm looking for is a pH of around about 3.6 to 3.7. Sometimes you can creep out a little bit on that pH because, you know, you might be wanting to pick early to beat rain or something like that. But it really makes it difficult to catch up on wine quality in the winery if you don't get the pH approximately right. The next thing we're going to sample is our sugar. Now for that, I'm going to use a refractometer. In the winery later on, when I'm during the middle of ferment, I'm going to use a Brix hydrometer. But out here in the vineyard, I like to use a well-calibrated Brix refractometer. Using your refractometer is pretty simple. To start with, calibrate it using this little screw on the top and the provided screwdriver to plain distilled water. Your scale should register 0 with plain distilled water. Failing to calibrate your refractometer just means you're going to be consistently wrong. Once you've calibrated your refractometer, tilt the protective cover backwards, tilt the entire refractometer so that the blue lens is upright, and place a small amount of juice on the lens so that it's evenly covered. Once you've done that, close your protective cover. The protective cover is designed to ensure that there's always the same depth of juice that you're taking your reading through, thus providing accuracy over time. Then simply look through the eyepiece. So now I've got a reading on a scale. What does that mean? Well, the reading on the scale in this particular refractometer is Brix, or grams per litre of sugar. So I have to do a small amount of maths. Basically, I get my Brix. I divide that by a conversion factor, and that gives me another number, which is my predicted alcohol on ferment. So what does this look like? It looks like 23.2 divided by 1.8 should give me around about 12.89% alcohol if I fully ferment the wine. Not bad. I could pick that on sugar, but because my acid's so low, I'm going to leave it another week, and my wine's probably going to be more like 13.5 to 14% alcohol when I pick it in a week's time. That's another example of why you should use the two measurements and not just pick on sugar and not just pick on acid. I can't emphasize enough the importance of testing your grapes before you pick. You should start regularly testing after veraison when the grapes get to about 17 Brix, and you should be testing at least once a week, possibly even twice a week from that point forward. It'll stop you making costly mistakes. For example, case in point, I've got 5 days of rain forecast. I'm starting to get really worried about the grapes. Do I pick? Don't I pick? Well, based on my pH test today and my refractometer test today, I now know that I have to leave those grapes on for another week. There's just no two ways about it. My pH is only at about 3.45 and my sugar's only at about 23.5. So to pick them now, just because I've got a bit of rain pressure on me, would be a mistake that would ruin my wine for the next 10 years of tasting. If you test regularly enough, like my students were in this particular example here, you can actually graph your ripeness and use that to select a picking date that suits you and members of your family that are going to help you out. Through good record keeping and good scientific methodology and careful sampling to avoid bias, you can improve the quality of your homemade wine out of sight. I hope these tips help, and if you did enjoy this video, please hit the little subscribe button down there, give it a thumbs up. You've got no idea how much it helps the channel. And next time we come back to the vineyard, we're going to be picking.